Welcome, welcome, welcome into Classic Wax. Hope you're all having a fantastic Monday. Classic Wax brought to you by the Beat Sessions. I am your host, Mitchell Weary. Sorry to bail on you guys this morning. It's been quite a weekend. I gotta tell you, I started a job delivering newspapers in the evening. Now I know that sounds a little crazy, and maybe you know what? Let me just stop this right off the bat. I don't want to say that anything is below me ever. I think that's a disgusting thing for people to say. If you all follow the channel, you all know me. I've worked in restaurants for a number of decades now. It's crazy to say that. I almost said years, but no, it's decades. I'm just kind of that old. But the thing about a restaurant, and I think the thing about most vocations is that you start from the bottom, and now you're here, right? The most important thing is that once you get here, is that you don't forget where you started. And so, to say that anything is below you, I'm not a fan of that. I manage a really, really popular restaurant now, and had to clean up pee today. Had to clean up puke yesterday. It's just, it is what it is. People are gross. People are disgusting. It's kind of part of the topic of the show today. I don't want to get too negative right off the bat here, but the framework of the show, talking about Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind. That is your album of the week, a wonderful record released on September 30th, 1997. It's been 27 years since we've got that record from Bob. It's a magnificent album. It's far from perfect, and it's interesting going back and forth between criticisms on the album because, there's a number of people that will say it's brilliant. There's a number of people that will call out Daniel Lanois as far as his production and his influence on the record. Bob even talks about it in Chronicles as well. I don't think it was a negative experience overall, but Daniel working with him on Oh Mercy and then working with him on Time Out of Mind, Bob, for the remainder of his career after that record, chose to do his own production, and I get it. It's Time Out of Mind's it's a fascinating record. I'm really excited to get into it, talk about it. Just the quality of the songs, the production value, whether or not you dig it or not. There's so much fun conversation there, and so I think a timeless album. I don't think I know anybody that says it's a bad record. I know some people that argue it's not this upper tier of Bob Dylan records that a lot of people put it in, but still commend it for what it brings to the table and for what it did for the trajectory of Bob's career from 1997 on. He puts out Love and Theft in 2001, which Mississippi was a track that was supposed to appear on that record. It did not. It got cut loose. And Bob talks about, if you'd heard the version of that song under Daniel's production, it wasn't where it needed to be. And it's crazy. Like you listen to that composition and it's so good. It's one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs. And I think most people would say that it's one of the better songs that he's written in his career ever. But to think that it was in such a fragile state in Daniel's hands while he was working with Bob on Time Out of Mind, and then to see it 4 years later on that fantastic record as well. It's fascinating personnel, the people that we surround ourselves with, and oftentimes we do that with the idea in mind that things will just go off seamlessly, and it's not always the case. And I know that me personally this year, working with some partners on a project and watching it just kind of fall through, like just reaching a point where I'm looking at the people that are in charge of this project that I'm working on, and I'm like, you guys are out of your mind. Like, you are not. Something got lost there in the mix. So and you can always agree to disagree, right? And that's the big thing at the end of the day, is that we're going to lead this thing off talking about Chappell Roan. I think that what's going on with her, that image is quite hilarious if you saw the SNL skit. I think that her situation is really unique, and I love her. I mean, first of all, I just think that her impact on music and what she's brought to the table, really within a short span of time, I know she's been around since roughly 2017, 2018, But The Rise and Fall of a Midwestern Girl is an album that had just an immense impact, and on so many people as well. But we read about our girl recently here, and a lot of situations where she's calling out her fan base, and she's not shy about being really honest about the energy that's there, which is oftentimes negative. And there's stories about Ariana Grande. I mean, there's a number of artists that are starting to speak out about the toxicity of being in this industry. And frankly, entertainment, and I don't say this to dismiss it, entertainment's always been toxic. There is a level of naivete at some point, to some degree, that, like if you don't really wrap your head around that before you dive into this kind of career, then you're not really giving it the full spectrum of thought. And, if things end up rubbing you the wrong way at the end of the day because you didn't give that process your due diligence, then that's on you at the end of the day. But what I love about the woman is that she's so forthright, she's so honest. Her music's incredible. Let's just talk about that in the first place. I mean, I think that she's kind of like the new Lady Gaga figure, and especially since we're going to talk about Gaga today. I hope Gaga takes her entire career in a different direction. After the release of Harlequin, watching her work with Tony Bennett in the last decade, like, I love her electro pop persona and all those records that she has put out over the years. But at the end of the day, as she's gotten older as an artist, I think that this jazz standard, this big classic ballad, think of the 1930s, the 40s, the 50s. This is a style of music and a genre that it's not just about fitting her personality, but it does. I also think just her voice is so remarkable. It's so incredible. And, just relegating it to commercial pop, I think in a lot of ways does it a disservice. And I'd say that about Chappell as well. I think that this is an artist who, if she continues to make music, will continue to grow as a person. Obviously, it's, if you go through life in the right way, I'd like to argue, you grow as a person. You learn to discover what you like, what you don't like, where to make compromises, where to stand up for yourself, all those different things. And she's at a fascinating point in her career where, like I said, if she continues to make music, I think that she's going to turn away from kind of the pop standard that she's established herself with, and she will start making music that I would say appeals to the truer fans. I'm talking about those people that are critics of her and her opinions and all that stuff. It's a tough thing. I can't imagine what it's like to just be completely drowned in fame coming off a record and having to deal with a year where you're inundated with all this stuff. And it's coming from your fans. It's coming from the media. It's coming from every direction you could possibly imagine, when all you really wanted to do was just make some great music, make some great art, share it with people, share your opinions, just try to have a positive impact. And we live in a day and age when there's so many people that recognize that, and they're willing to just come right back and hate and turn it around. So it's a tough thing. Like, my channel is not nearly as popular as Chaperone, but taking on this, just this conversation in and of itself, you risk polarizing people. You risk, I risk losing subscribers on my channel for saying some of these things that I want to say. It doesn't matter though. At the end of the day, the whole point of that, through the ebbs and flows, is finding the people that, it's not about creating that bubble. It's not about making the algorithm happy. It's not about finding people that are just going to like and agree with you, but it's about finding people that are genuine and even in their disagreement with you. And that's what I love about where my channel's gotten. I applaud all of you. There's so many of you that comment on videos, on the live streams. And even when you dissent, even when you disagree, your comments are constructive. They provide a different angle, which is just, it's validated. It's very valid when you guys, bring all this stuff whether you agree or disagree. And I love that. I love that about the audience size that we're at, and just everything that you guys bring to the table. And so, Chapel is an artist that I love listening to her videos. I love her perspective as far as when it comes to politics. There's a lot of people that are just, putting her in the Kamala camp, and that sucks. Like, I feel really bad for her. She's not just some bleeding heart Democrat. Like, she might have her opinions and they might lean in your direction, but that doesn't mean that, she's going to endorse Kamala. And I love that. I argue that on this channel a ton. I don't think that there's a worse thing for an artist to do than to endorse a political candidate. There's a big difference between endorsing and voting. Fantano talks about that in a little clip where he talks about her. I also saw his review for The Rise and Fall of a Midwestern Girl, and it is kind of bizarre. It's like he sits there and just cries for like 3 minutes. It's very weird. It's very interesting. I'm not quite sure what his angle is. I don't think Chapel needs any of us crying for her. I think that she just wants to be left alone. It's no different than, again, small scale example, but working in restaurants in Tucson, which is kind of a small town, even if it is big, for as long as I can't go out and have a beer without someone poking me in the back and being like, hey man, like, didn't enjoy service at your restaurant the other night. And I'm not even talking about a specific restaurant. I'm just talking about just any incident over the years when I've been working in any spot. And it's frustrating. It's like, man, I am trying to decompress. I am trying to relax and just enjoy a beer. Maybe I'm with a friend or two having a conversation. And it's just like, it's that lack of filter. And that's what I think Chapel's really getting at with her issue on this. It's that people, and I blame social media for this, because you have that unlimited access to people. You have that unlimited access to content, or to comment, excuse me. And so it happens IRL, and you get people that come up and it's like, you're your real life Facebook page and they want to comment, and they want to dislike, and they want to do this. And it's just mind numbing. It's just insane. If you're one of those people, seriously, leave people the fuck alone. Like, when you see someone that's out to dinner with just minding their own business, relaxing, it doesn't matter if you disagree with a video, their opinion, whatever it is, leave them alone. It's not the time and place. Frankly, like, that kind of behavior is bullshit. And those people are also the type of people that will victimize themselves when someone turns around and they're like, hey man, like, I'm trying to enjoy myself, leave me alone. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like, you want to ignore me? You want to disparage me? Like, I don't blame Chapel for being in the spot that she's in. And, maybe this isn't the best way of communicating where her frustration's at. Maybe, and maybe she hasn't necessarily communicated her frustration in the best place, or in the best manner. But it's just, it's a situation where, fame can be just such an Achilles heel. I mean, it can really show you kind of like the most disgusting side of humanity, which is unfortunate. So I think that for future artists, for her, for anybody out there, and, I think of this myself. I admire and respect and appreciate all of you that have subscribed to this channel, those of you who show up and again, make positive contributions, whether you agree or disagree with the opinions on the channel. It's all about discussion. It's all about open dialogue. And I believe that that's something that has really gotten lost on society. And I know that we're just talking about music most of the time, but music is about, and it's about the zeitgeist. It's about, framing it in a lot of ways. And so politics, society, economics, like all these things that artists have written about over the years are certainly relevant, and they're fair game, and they're important to discuss. But there's also, it's delicate when you try to approach that subject matter. And oftentimes, it's, you can fall short, or most importantly, you can leave your audience with an impression that's, not necessarily like the most positive. And again, it's a difficult task. Like, if you really want to, in 2024, take that dive, you got to be willing to deal with the repercussions, unfortunately. And I hope she gets to a place where, she finds some peace of mind with, with everything that is stressing her out, I would love to see her make another record. I think she's phenomenal. I think she's a great pop star. And, even more interesting, like Lady Gaga, it would be great to see her, maybe take a shift in a different genre direction. And I think if she does that, she might deal with a fan base that's a little more loyal, a little more respectful, and not just, so driven by consumerism. I would argue that as much as I love pop music, that is the one thing that I would criticize it the most for, is that it can be just so disposable. This is the only word I can think of. It's like you get a hit, a banger for a month, it's in the club, you're dancing to it, you get sick of it, you toss it aside. And I just don't think that that's what art is meant for, created for, and it's not what all these people are putting their hard work in their daily lives to do. So, like if you're the disposable type, you probably need to find different artists like Chappell, and even then, just like leave people alone. Just enjoy the music. Just know that you're just a flake on the pile of snow. All those comments, your opinion, everything. It's like in a big scope, you're not directing your energy necessarily in a manner that's positive or constructive. And so again, like all of you on my channel, I feel like the overwhelming majority of you have done a really nice job of making positive contributions, and I appreciate you all. And that leads us into Lady Gaga and this new record, Harlequin, which is a companion piece to the Joker soundtrack, Folie à Deux, which is a reference. It's a French term. It's a reference to the person, the mind that drives you to do certain things. And obviously, given the content of Joker and this movie, it's very fascinating, Harlequin's character, and the way that she is, her personality is driven arguably so much by the Joker. I don't think that she is in many ways an independent actor. Her character, not Lady Gaga. And again, I'm not like a comic book aficionado either, but I just feel like throwing out that term in that movie and knowing that this series is in a lot of ways removed from the real like comic book realm. These characters are interpreted, and I think they've opened up in a lot of ways in a constructive manner. I think that the superhero medium has just been beat to death in Hollywood. You just get the same movies over and over again, shit storylines, a lot of computer generated graphics that take the place of quality content, of quality, thematic content. And it's just, it's refreshing, even though it does go to really dark, often sinister territory, to see a more honest, I guess, hardcore take on comics too. Because I mean, if you are a comic book reader, even in my minimal experience, comics are, for the most part, most of them are a lot edgier than the movies depict. And that's kind of been my other beef. I really wish that comic book authors would be, or excuse me, screenwriters would be more true to form with the, original comic book material versus, trying to make a PG-13 rated movie that is going to blow up at the box office, which is kind of feels like where that medium's gone. So Harlequin, looking at Chappell and looking at an artist like Lady Gaga, whose career spans about 2 decades now. It's crazy to think she's been around about 20 years doing her thing. But you can see this evolution in an artist, an individual that I think found her way into a scene, this music scene, and it certainly had a ton of success. And really made a lot of quality music as well. Her electropop albums, that Alter Ego is excellent, and there's no denying that. But and especially as I've gotten older, as my taste have changed a little bit, Lady Gaga strikes me as someone who is in that same camp, and her tastes are changing. The style of music that she wants to create, oftentimes I feel, is moving in a different direction, based on, just how she's changed as a human being. And so this record, marketed as Lady Gaga 6.5, who's to say what the official 7 studio album will sound like, but I hope that she makes more of an effort to stay within this genre, this jazz standard, big band pop driven sound that I mean, she really has just developed a knack for working with, and really excels within that style. I love this record. I think Harlequin is super unique. 11 lovely covers and then 2 originals, but you get, just big classics. So When the Saints Go Marching In, If You Just Smile. I mean, you're gonna listen to so many of these songs, and that's what I love about this record, especially for a younger audience that's familiar with her work, but might not be familiar with these compositions, and they're being opened up to a whole new medium of music, while also getting a little bit of that Gaga flair. There's no denying that, if Tony Bennett was still around, he might not approve of some of the compositions on this record, the little nuances that she's given a lot of these tracks. But I think that's what's so cool about this record, is that, she had that time with Tony. They did great work together, and he's gone. Unfortunately, and when situations like that arise, it's really about moving forward and doing things with a certain veneration, but also doing things in a way that are your own. And I think that Harlequin really finds Lady Gaga at that point. Exceptional record. I love it. It's a ton of fun, and definitely would recommend listening to it. Van Morrison is also back as well with new arrangements and duets. I love this record. It's falling into the same category in a lot of ways, I feel. Van Morrison's a guy that I think most people would throw him into the rock and roll category, but he even says himself, he is a jazz singer. He's a guy that soul and jazz. I think that's really his angle. And this record, new arrangements and duets, looking at a number of kind of deep cuts over. Most of these songs put out on records throughout the last 2 decades, I'd say, but there's some stuff that goes back a little further. The duets are super fun. Pull up some stuff here. I know working with Josh Stone on this record, and pull up this info here real quick. We got hold on, sorry guys, but Kurt Elling, Josh Stone, as I mentioned, Willie Nelson appears on this record. It's amazing. Van Morrison talked about wanting to do a duet with Willie Nelson for such a long time, and making it happen finally is a really cool component of this record. Van's a guy that I look at Lady Gaga, I look at Chapel, and it's actually, I look at mostly Lady Gaga for this example, because I said that there's a lot of similarities between the two records. And Lady Gaga's record, very well received. I think a lot of that has to do with, covering popular, classic songs that, people are familiar with. But this new Van record, what I love about it, and a lot of people called it dull, a lot of people called it boring, and I disagree. It's maybe a little bloated. At this point, I'm kind of like, who cares? With streaming services and the way that you're able to put out music, I mean, going back to the CD, you can make a project at whatever length. And I know we like to talk about wax. And what I will say about this record is, with the runtime, you're getting 2 full pieces of wax. It's a proper double album, versus, many records we see on this channel, they run maybe 55, 60 minutes. You're getting shorted on your second piece of wax there. So I love that Van is filling that up with these arrangements and opening up an audience to just a different style of music. And even for his fans, I think a lot of his fans are familiar with that soul, that jazz, that pop flair, all of these, and even the Celtic mysticism that he incorporates into his music. I love that aspect of he's a Northern Irish guy. I love that region of the world. I lived in the Republic for a year. Ireland's a great place. The Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, I think, are both beautiful places. And I don't want to get into the politics of that. I will say that I enjoyed being in both countries, the time that I spent there, and musically, both just so influential. And so Van is, I think he's doing his work justice on this new record. I I disagree that it's boring. There's a number of critics that are saying that it's dull. I would say that it does run a little long, but again, at this point, he's, closing in on 80, and we're, reaching a point in time where we probably won't have that much more time with Van Morrison. Today was a rough day, losing, Chris Christopherson yesterday. But, music and sports tie together very well. So Pete Rose, Dikembe Mutombo, losing people like that, you just never know. And it's unfortunate. A guy like Dikembe Mutombo especially, like, I know we're talking about the basketball world in the realm of music, but, he's a guy that, like the first world ambassador for the NBA, and he's a guy that took his entire NBA salary back to Africa and put it towards developing infrastructure. Really just a stellar person, a stellar human being, and it's sad to have lost him. Amongst many others, a lot of people saying just nothing but kind words about Chris Christopherson as well. A legend, someone who's extremely influential in popular music and in popular culture. And so to have Van Morrison still doing his thing, he talks about how, if I stop singing, I'll probably stop breathing. And so keep on singing, Van. There's projects that I'm like latest record project, not a fan of that. That was way too bloated. And I will argue this. I will die on this molehill. A song like Why Are You on Facebook? I get it. I get why he's writing it, but it just doesn't feel like it's something that authentically belongs in a Van Morrison catalog. It just feels too contrived. It feels too directed at something versus, so much of his art over the years is, it's work that it's organic. It has soul. It feels authentically Van versus, just trying to make a statement, trying to go out there. And I'd say that new arrangements and duets and I'd say moving on Skiffle too, I really enjoyed that record. You getting back to that direction of just the art. I everybody has their right to their opinions and their politics, but that stuff doesn't always carry over well into the art. And so, again, if you choose to do that, be willing to deal with the repercussions. But I would say that new arrangements and duets, staying out of that realm, really opens up everybody to a number of deep cuts on the Van catalog, and reinventing it. It's that's another big thing too. Is he's a guy that talks about, I don't want to sing every song twice. When I'm on stage, when I'm in the moment, when I'm performing, I'm feeling different things every single time. And so to try to, mimic the inflection of my voice just because that's how I recorded it, it doesn't necessarily do a composition justice. And so, I love that about Van. I love that he's constantly evolving. Another thing that he says is, songs, they can always be reworked. They can always be revisited. There was someone that was interviewing him that was talking about Dylan Thomas. And Dylan Thomas is a guy that talked about that quite a bit with his poetry. He said that, it was fascinating to revisit stuff when I was younger because you just don't feel the same way. You're not the same person. You've grown and you have different perspectives. And, Van talks about, changing lyrics depending on the song, the performance, updating things. And so it's like, I love that. I love that from artists who, even if it's so subtle, even if it's so nuanced, trying to just stay relevant, stay modern, and stay up to date with their audience, and to have, just to have that connection with them as well. And that gets us to our album of the week. This man, Mr. Bob Dylan, Time Out of Mind. What a record. Again, released on September 30th, 1997. We got it in. It's, it's still 11 o'clock where I'm at, so we got it in on the date. That is the big rule with Classic Wax. Daniel Lanois, production on this record, 11 tracks. It's a record that it's gorgeous, and I love the construction of it. But you listen to criticism of the album, and there are things that certainly make sense. I don't think they're detrimental, but I certainly understand what people are saying when they talk about the cloudy production. Let's get into that. I think that this is an album that has a mood. It has a feel for sure. There's a lot that reminds me. There's a lot that reminds me of Blood on the Tracks, honestly. Like, he lyrically is very jaded. There are a lot of songs with reference to love where, they could have easily come out of those sessions, those Blood on the Tracks sessions. And I love that dynamic balanced with the blues element as well. I really feel like that drive is, it's so compelling, and it's working on this record. And it makes these compositions fascinating, in my opinion. The production, though, however, I understand what people are saying when they say, there's a lot of just the same sound on the record, and a lot of it, a lot of the instrumentation, whether it's the pedal steel, whether it's the rhythm section, the different layers of guitars that are at work. I don't personally think that any of these tracks ever get muddled, but it does often feel like there's a lot going on. Like, there's a lot swimming in the pool. But I still think that Bob's voice manages to be the focal point, the storytelling, what is so quintessential about who he is as an artist and his catalog. And it's interesting, too, because there's so many people out there that will say that Bob Dylan does not have a great singing voice. Technically, no, he doesn't. But, and actually, let me amend that. I think there are moments when Bob really can nail certain vocal elements. But for the most part, he's a guy that his brilliance lies in playing to his strengths. And Time Out of Mind is a record that it feels just so poetic. It feels like so many other things that he's done throughout his career, that the storytelling, the lyrics, the poetry is really what matters at the end of the day. And so, the music production, I don't know. I find myself a little bit on the fence. There are definitely moments where I listen to this record and it feels like it does hit a little bit of a lull towards the back end of it. I'm thinking of songs, really coming off of Not Dark Yet. I love that. Cold Irons Bound is a fantastic song, but there's this kind of moment where Make You Feel My Love. Make You Feel My Love is not my favorite song. It's a good song, but it's definitely not my favorite song on this record. And it comes at a point where, you really are listening to a record that, for as unique as it is in a catalog like Bob Dylan's especially, again, there's a lot of similarities in the compositions, the way that they come together. The simple blues drive, there will be different fluctuations as far as the rhythm. I feel like there's moments where you get jazz elements. I think the organ is the most fascinating instrument on this record. There's moments where it's gothic. There's moments where it has a gospel feel. There's moments where the organ is complex and simple. It's really a very unique instrument on this record. But it kicks off with Lovesick, fades in with this echoey, haunting organ. Bob's vocal moves along with this moody sparseness. I really just like that element to it, and that organ is just ding, ding, ding. It's so spooky. It's so good, and it really, I don't want to say it sets the tone, because you get Dirt Road Blues as your second track, and some criticism about that track as far as the way it changes the feel of this record, the continuity of it. Now, I personally I love the way that song picks up the pace, especially, Lovesick. It's got this minimalism. I do like the way that the textures continue to build out on the record, but Dirt Road Blues, it picks up the tempo. You get this light guitar and simple Americana rhythm, a bit of organ for texture, and that big blues drive really hitting hard on this thing, and that contrast. I feel like Lovesick, kind of that Blood on the Tracks territory, and Dirt Road Blues is going into that kind of blues side of this thing, and it's this Jekyll and Hyde territory that this album likes to navigate, that I find so much fun to listen to and so fascinating. But Dirt Road Blues, as I said, picks up the tempo. and you got that big blues drive. It's going to lead into Standing in the Doorway. Slows the tempo with minimal rhythm guitar. You got the sparse guitar as well that works in just this kind of layered component. Simple organ, and carries this lovesick, melancholy mode. It's not my favorite song on the record, and I think that I don't know. I would say that this is one of those tracks that, if people are throwing criticism out for a similar feel from song to song, this is one that maybe doesn't quite hit the way that others do with that feel. And that's just my opinion. Million Miles is your fourth track. Blues guitar and jazz rhythm. I love the minimal organ that carries on this particular track. It's minimal throughout the record for the most part, but there's something about the notes on this track that I just like. I love it. And I love the way that the drum fills in as the track progresses. You just get these great little fills, just great build in the percussion throughout that song. That's super fun. Trying to Get to Heaven is your fifth track. Prominent percussion with complementary bass, simple guitar, and really getting that gospel element in the organ, I feel, on this track. And I love the harmonica, definitely the highlight on this song, the way that takes hold and really does a nice job of building the track. Right around the middle of it, towards the back end of it. Till I Fell in Love with You is your sixth track. Big soul-driven blues feel on this. So nuanced. The guitar element is it really coalesces brilliantly on this track. I really like the way that the guitar comes together. Great piano drive and the coda on this track. I'd argue it's definitely a highlight, and I love the way that it builds into Not Dark Yet. Behind everything beautiful, there's some kind of pain. It's a great line. Most people argue that this is probably the highlight of the record. I don't know if it's necessarily the highlight. I will say it's a beautiful song, and I love it. Electric guitar, gentle percussion provide the base for lots of mellow textures that work into this thing. Love the contrast and dark lyrics, versus that kind of like lighthearted musical element there. It's dissonant in some ways, and there's anybody to explore that contrast and really excel within that framework, it's a guy like Bob Dylan, no doubt. Cold Irons, Bound is your eighth track. Symbol opens up with this thing, and this might be my favorite song on the record. I really like the energy on this track. Love the bass riff that builds around just that cymbal drive. It's so sick. Great bass riff there. Guitar hits, you get more percussion, and yeah, you just get more of an edge on this track than any other song on the record, I'd argue, and just turns into a big old rock and jam. Really a highlight for me. I love that song. Make You Feel My Love is your ninth track. Piano and vocal open with a strong ballad feel. Bass builds in with the organ, piano. That organ's going to take hold, and it plays nicely off the piano. I like the back and forth on that. I think it's a cool element to the song, despite again not being like the hugest fan of this particular track. I think that there are certainly things about it that warranted being on this track list, no doubt. Can't Wait is your 10th song. Love the moody feel of this track. More great action from the rhythm. Killer guitars on this song. Really loving that element of it. And then Highlands is your 11th and final track. Just a big old song. I think this thing runs about 16 and a half minutes or something like that. So, think of Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Think of Desolation Row. Think of, so many classic Dylan records that close with that big old 10-minute plus banger. And I like that he's kind of paying homage to his catalog, to his career, exploring that territory with Highlands. But I think it's just a big old beautiful ballad. I love the structure of it. I love the lyrics. The storytelling's great. It's one of those ones that it's fun to just, even from time to time, throw it on by itself, follow along with it, and just get a good tale to be told. And that's going to conclude your track list for your album of the week, Time Out of Mind, by Bob Dylan, released on September 30th, 1997. Guys, I got to say, I do apologize for not showing up again this morning. I got this new paper route that is... it's made my life kind of interesting. The hours are a little quirky And yeah, getting up in the morning is not always necessarily the easiest thing in the world. So there's going to be some reworking in the schedule of Classic Wax. I'm not going to abandon this because I've had so much fun doing this. Of all the live streams that I've tried throughout the years with this channel, this is the one that I think it's basically a glorified album review, but there's more that we can add. I love the live element, and I hope that you're all enjoying tuning into this from time to time and having a highlighted album of the week, a classic album, so to speak. And Time Out of Mind certainly is one of those. I'd be one of those people to argue that really brought Bob back to relevance again. And I'd say there was a big time period. I believe Oh Mercy was 1986. So, you think about roughly, a little over a decade where a lot of people looked at Bob Dylan as an artist that was starting to fade, falling into that territory of, touring greatest hits records and stuff like that. And, all that be damned. Bob Dylan is not that kind of artist. He's a trailblazer. He is a maestro. And, he's the type of cat that, as long as there's still air in his lungs, he's going to push boundaries and just be one of the dopest cats that's ever done anything ever, artistically. Literature, painting, it doesn't even matter. Bob Dylan, I would say, is, in the last quarter millennium, maybe one of the most influential and well-known people that's ever created art. And it's a pleasure to still have him around. And I hope you enjoy listening to Time Out of Mind this week. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Wax. Stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. I'll get that Van Morrison review out to you tomorrow. And again, that's an exceptional record. New arrangements and duets. Check that out. Check out Harlequin from Lady Gaga. And if you haven't listened to Chappell Roan, check her out. She's phenomenal. Even if she is, maybe a little too mouthy for some of her fans, at the end of the day, I say screw those people. I'm not sensitive in that kind of manner. And, I'm also not the type of person that's like sitting up in a tree with binoculars trying to like spy on her and intrude on her private life. So hope you found this show enjoyable, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on Classic Wax. All right, guys?